Hi, I'm Wayne the Boat Guy, and in this video we're going to talk all about shifters. I've actually been asked by a couple of different people to put a video up about how to operate the boat and how to use the shifter. And so this short little video is going to talk a little bit about how the shifter for a boat works. They're a pretty straightforward piece of equipment, but they also serve a lot of different purposes and functions. So there's a lot packed into this little area right here. If you happen to have a two-stroke outboard boat, like an old Johnson or Evinrude, I did a video that's located up here that can talk about how to operate one of those and how that shifter works, because those shifters are very different from one inboard outboard like this one right here. But the basics of how the shifter works are the same across the board. Basically, how one of these shifters work is that there is a locking latch underneath. So underneath of here, there is a latch. So you can't shift it forward or reverse without pushing the button that's underneath. When you push the button underneath, you can shift it into reverse and you can shift it into forward. And it clicks into neutral. If you don't hold the button in, when you click it into neutral, it'll lock into neutral. Couple of things to know. Number one, anytime you're starting your boat, you need to have it clicked and locked in neutral. Some of these have a neutral safety switch on there and the boat will not start unless it is in neutral. So you always want to make sure you are clicked and locked into neutral before starting the boat. Secondly, doesn't work like a car shifter. This is essentially your accelerator pedal and also your transmission shifter. Any point forward of the locking neutral position is forward momentum. So if you want to go forward slowly, you pull it until you start hearing the engine engage and then accelerating you forward. The farther you push this forward, the more acceleration it's going to get. You can go all the way down here to full throttle forward. And then whenever you're needing to back the boat up, you just click it back into reverse and pull it back towards you, and that's reverse. Another interesting thing, I don't know if you could hear, but it clicks into different spots in there too. So there are some different, you kind of have a feel for whether you're doing soft acceleration or click to here where you're doing more acceleration. If you're parking your boat at the marina, docking your boat somewhere, and you're using a forward and reverse momentum for docking, you'll want to hold your finger on the trigger, because that way you can kind of go forward a little bit, then you come back to neutral, then go reverse a little bit, come to neutral, then go forward. Especially if you're backing into a spot, you'll want to be reversing into it, go to neutral to slow up a little bit, and then give it a little bit more reverse as you're getting close, and then so that you don't bang into the pier, that's where you might want to use just a little bit of forward momentum at the very last second there to keep from banging all the way into the pier. Some other interesting aspects of these is that this lever right here is for your trim adjustment, and most of them have that. So that trims up and down your outdrive on an inboard outboard motor, or trims up and down your actual engine if you have an outboard motor. So this raises it up raises up, down takes it down. Another interesting thing on something like an inboard outboard like this one is that some of these have this button here on the side, where what you can do is when you push this button in and then pull the trigger, you can then take it down like this to be able to preload to give it some throttle whenever you're first starting the boat. So that is not engaging the outdrive. It's not engaging the transmission. Now it's just a throttle control for the engine. And I'll show how that works a little bit more. Another thing that's on here is this safety latch right here. When you're operating your boat, ideally, you should have this clipped to you at all times. That's what it says on this warning label here. The idea is that this works like it does on a jet ski, which this will shut the engine off right away if for some reason you fall out of the boat and this becomes detached. So this just clips onto a little button trigger, and this you clip onto your belt loop or your safety vest or something like that. And as you're here at the helm, you're fine. And then whenever you leave the helm, you disconnect this. The idea behind this is, think about this. If you're out boating by yourself and you're out riding around and you hit a big wake and you get thrown from the boat, if you don't have this on you, that boat's just going to keep on going at whatever speed this is set at, because these do not have an accelerator pedal. This is your accelerator. So if you're 3/4 throttle and you get thrown from the boat, this ain't coming back. You don't have to hold this in position when you're riding your boat. When you put it to here, it just stays right there until you pull it back or push it farther forward. So this safety switch keeps your boat from then running at 20 miles an hour until it runs out of fuel or into another boat or swimmers or a beach or a pier or bulkhead. This is a safety switch. So it will cut the engine. If you get thrown from your boat and it cuts the engine, your boat's not going to be too far away from you so that you could swim back to your boat and get your boat, and your boat's not going to endanger other people by running on its own. So this should be used at all times. I will admit that I do not always have this attached. And I probably should. And one of the challenges that I have is there's a lot of times that I get up and I walk away from my helm, and if I have this attached, I'll cut the engine because of the fact that this will pop off because I forget that I have it on. That's a personal bad habit, and a lot of people have that bad habit. But that's what it's for. And what I try to do is when I'm going out in the bay, and if it gets a little bit rough out there, I always try to make sure I've got it hooked on at those situations. Let me do a quick demonstration of how this throttle can work whenever you're in neutral. My inboard outboard is fuel injected, so I do not need to set the throttle before I start it because it's a fuel injected engine. If you have a carbureted one, what you would do is before you go to start the engine, you would push this in, and then you would set your idle speed for starting. I can actually idle up the engine right now with this pushed in. I can rev the engine up. But the engine's in neutral. And then when I click it back to neutral, this will click back out again. And so now if I were to push this trigger and engage forward, we would start going forward, engage backwards, we'd start going backwards. Right now I'm tied off at the marina, so that's not going to happen. And here, let me pull the safety switch so you can see how it works. We'll give it a test. I pulled the switch, it cut the engine right off. And it just clicks back in place whenever you're done, and it holds a little pin. There's a little tiny center pin in there, and when you click it in place, it pushes that pin in. If you ever break that, in order to operate your boat, you just need to push that pin in and hold that in the whole time you're running your boat. Might be useful to have a spare one of these on board, actually. Now, as I mentioned before, if you have an outboard motor with a carburetor on it, and if it's an OMC type shifter, which is the type that they use for Evinrude's, Johnson's, and some others, that will have the ignition built into there. It has a choke built into it, lever for throttle control. But the basics for forward, reverse, trim, and the safety switch are the same. So I hope you found this short video entertaining and informative. And if you have any questions, please be sure to put them in the comments below, and I will try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Here's a playlist of videos for new boaters and another video picked specially for you. Thanks for watching, and stay safe on the water.